Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's investment webinar. I'm excited to have you with us. It's noon here in Cape Town, and we've got a fantastic session lined up for you today. This webinar is proudly brought to you by Real Estate Investor. It's in partnership with Bitprop. They are leaders in transforming homeowners into property entrepreneurs. And they partner with property owners to turn backyard spaces into successful businesses. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Neil Peterson. I'm the founder of REI, South Africa's leading independent real estate platform, content education since 2007, and I'm going to be your host and moderator today. So as we dive into a topic that I think could change the course of your property investment strategy. And at REI, we're committed to empowering real estate investors and business professionals through our digital platform, rei.co.za, our award-winning monthly magazine, Real Estate Investor, and our regular live webinars and events. And today, we're taking that commitment a step further. So before we jump into today's session, here's a little bit of housekeeping, recordings. We get this question a lot. If you registered for today's webinar, we'll send you a link to the recording after the event. And if you haven't registered yet, you can find the recording on our website at rei.co.za under the events and webinar sections. For questions, we encourage you to engage. Please submit your questions at any time during the session using the Q&A box located at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and we'll make sure to answer all of those questions at the end part of the webinar. So let's get on to today's webinar theme. It's unlocking potential, turning underutilized backspaces into profitable ventures. And in this session, we'll delve into a compelling model for turning underutilized spaces into sustainable income-generating rental units, providing both homeowners and investors with substantial returns. And we're thrilled to have two professionals here from Bitprop here today. Firstly, it's Dylan Walls. He's the Chief Operating Officer of Bitprop. Dylan, thank you for joining us. I'm excited to have you here today. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, thanks, Neil. I'm Dylan, as Neil said. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Bitprop. I've also been part of the team since we started in early 2019.
That's wonderful. Now, I've actually seen you guys progress from when you started there, Dylan. So I'm really excited for today's discussion and seeing you progress from a few units to multiple, and we will be talking a bit about that a bit later. And then, of course, we're thrilled to have Vuneni Shilavani. She's the marketing manager at Bitprop. Vuneni, can you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Of course, thank you, Neil. Hi, my name is Vuneni. I joined the team in 2022 when we started scaling up, and I've seen it grow through many different phases. But yeah, I'm a fairly new addition to the team, but happy to be a part of it.
Wonderful. Great having you here as well, Vuneni. So let's get into the Q&As, and obviously I'll say to our audience, get involved in the discussion, ask questions. It's so important to get involved. If you're not sure, that kind of stuff, please fire away. We'd like us to be interactive. So starting with you, Dylan, just maybe give us a brief overview of, how the Bitprop model works and, and how does it benefit both homeowners and investors?
Sure. And would you mind if I shared my screen? I don't have slides, but maybe I can show a quick...
Of course you can.
Loop.
Of course you can.
Just to give,
and you've got sharing rights, so that should be all fine. So, yeah, no problem.
What you should see is just the homepage of our website.
Yes, got it. We can see that.
Okay, great. So I'll just leave that up for a couple of minutes so you can see this loop here, and it gives a bit of context for the properties we work on.
Absolutely.
So what we do at Bitprop is we partner with township property owners who they have a property. It's got an existing house on it, and that house may be an RDP house or some kind of low income bonded house or something like that. And then they've got space behind the property that they want to develop, but they don't have the means to. And sometimes there may be a shack in the backyard or half-built flats or something else, or it might just be vacant. And we come in, we provide the funding and the expertise, and we'll build 4 or 6 bachelor flats behind their house, and you can see a few of them in this drone loop here. So we partner with local construction companies, build the flats. That takes about 3 months, and then for a period of 10 years after that, we're in partnership with the homeowner in a rent sharing scheme. So the homeowner will get 15% of the gross rent collected, and we manage the property with them. So they're sort of the face on the ground with the relationship with the tenants, and we provide the back-end support and all the financial and legal support. So we'll help them with finding tenants, collecting rent, managing deposits. We cover all maintenance and insurance on the properties. And the idea is over this 10-year journey that the homeowner is with us, they go from, for most of them, it's their first time being a landlord. By the end of 10 years, they have the knowledge and the skills and the assets to run a successful property rental business on their property. And the motivation for most of them is it's a pension asset. So they're looking at, something to retire on, or, something of real value to leave to their children. And our financial model is so we get private investment in. That capital is used to build the flats, and then the rental income earned each month goes back into like a fund, and the investor over 10 years earns a return on that, which is approximately 15.4% per annum. So their idea is to create a sustainable, scalable model that attracts capital to be able to create impact like this without, it doesn't rely on government funding or NGOs or anything like that. And so far it's worked pretty well. We have over 500 flats now across a few different areas in Cape Town.
It's incredible. I mean, as I said right at the outset, I've seen you guys grow. Can I ask you, Dylan, just to stop share the screen? I want to get through into a further discussion. So let's just elaborate just a little bit on that. What are the types of underutilized spaces are suitable for the Bitprop model? And how do you assess a property for potential?
So how we look at it is, so we'll have a few areas we work in, specific areas. That's based on a number of things like council regulation, size of the property, rent, crime, where our contractors are from. So an applicant needs to be from one of those areas. They have to own the property. And of course, there has to be space behind the house for us to build at least our smallest version of our flats. And after that, it's more of a case by case. So we'll look at the credit, employment, municipal account. And none of those are things we reject or accept based on, but it gives us background information to ask the right questions and then come to an agreement together with the homeowner if they want to partner with us.
Okay. All right. So Vuneni, I want to bring you in here because, obviously homeowners, they play a critical role in the whole Bitprop model. Maybe can you just elaborate and explain the process for them? I mean, from providing the land to generating rental income and just extending on exactly what Dylan was saying.
Sure. So the homeowners that we partner with, we're very insistent on the fact that they need to live on the property. We found that the best type of homeowner is one that a tenant can speak to regularly and bring their issues to. So if I were to start from the very beginning, we partner with homeowners based off the criteria that Dylan gave earlier, and then they basically sign on, and within maybe a week or two, they can have contractors on their property starting construction. So construction is roughly 3 months. We've gone, I think our quickest time was around 2 months. And sometimes it does go a little bit longer, but it's all weather dependent and etc. So during the construction period as well, our homeowners also go through training. So working with Bitprop is a little different from normal rental models. So we do require that some homeowners go through training. Sometimes it's their first time being a landlord as well. So we do equip them so that when they do have tenants on their property, they'll be able to handle those interactions quite well, and also work with us as well, because they're the connection between ourselves and the tenants on the property. Once training is concluded, it will roughly line up with the end of construction. And we have our in-house team of homeowner relationship managers that are essentially the people who help homeowners find tenants, deal with any rental issues that come up during this period, and are essentially their guardian angel during this period of time to help them. And also they're our connection to the homeowner as well. So they work with them on a day-to-day basis, finding tenants, dealing with deposits, rental, income issues, anything that, comes up for them. So essentially that is the process of them from signing on to eventually generating that rental income, which they get 15% of.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for clarifying that. So, Dylan, what is the typical timeline, for developing rental units on a homeowner's property? I mean, how long does it take before homeowners begin earning rental income? Because, the time was of essence here.
Yeah, so construction, as Nana said, is roughly 3 months. That doesn't change too much. So the whole process will depend on how complicated the application is, how eager the homeowner is to get going quickly, maybe title issues or restrictions we have to look into, or demolitions that have to happen. So there are a few variables like that which extend the process, but I would say it's on average maybe a 4.5 to 5 month process from application received to flats generating rent. So it's quite quick.
Okay. All right. So I think the word quick is rings a bell with a lot of investors. Okay. So Vuneni, I want to bring you in again now. Just, Bitprop partners with township property owners. What key criteria do you look for in a potential partner? And, how do you ensure successful partnerships?
Sure. So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to build property entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is something that we try to see in their first meeting. So we have our interviews essentially after an application is submitted. And if they're successful in the preliminary round, so that's if they have enough space, if they're in the right area, etc., we essentially bring them in for an interview. And in that interview, we'll have a conversation about why you live where you live and what brought you to Bitprop and how you consider, the future of your property. Do you see this being like a long-term thing? Are you invested for the long run? Because it is a partnership. We do explain that at the very beginning, but also consistently throughout. So we really look for people who are trying to be entrepreneurs, people who are trying to look for how this will benefit them 5 years in, 10 years in, 15 years in. Even though the partnership is only 10 years. We also do understand that not everybody has all the basic skills or all the basic requirements in order for them to hit, traditional banks have these very strict ways in order for a bank to loan you a specific amount of money. And Bitprop is essentially putting a significant amount of money on your property. And so we also have to look into who you are as a homeowner. And we understand we don't always tick those boxes according to traditional banks' criteria, but we look at your behavior, we look at your attitude, we look at the way that you perceive being an entrepreneur and being an individual who wants to create a business. So the ways we nurture this as well is through the training, as I mentioned earlier. And then we also keep a good relationship with the homeowner relationship manager so that it is a consistent, interactive process that works well for both the homeowner and ourselves. I think that relationship is a good way to keep businesses strong. And so this is one way that we continuously do so, by holding that relationship in constant good standing as well as we possibly can.
Wonderful. So it's like this is a partnership, a proper partnership, and I think that's critical. So I think it sounds like the steps that you're going through, is critical and important. It's got to be, it's a proper partnership and I like the criteria and everything that you use. So Dylan, I just want to bring you in here. Can you walk us through a typical investment opportunity for investors? And, what kind of returns can they expect over a fixed period?
Sure. And this has been a journey, I think, since the beginning. We had to get evidence in the beginning to show that it works to get investment and to de-risk the perceived risk of what we're doing. So in the early days, it was, and to an extent now, investors putting money into a pref share, basically, which on the rental income. So money in for 10 years. Over that time, rent is accumulating, earning interest, and if invested for the 10 years, they would get a lump sum back, which was equivalent to 15.4% per annum return. What we're now looking more towards is debt financing, as we've been able to build up data and show the risk model. And in that case, it's a straight loan to Bitprop. So a loan that is, it's often impact oriented. It's being used to create impact, but the creditor gets a payment once a month or once every 6 months. And that allows us to accumulate rent, build the flats, pay back, and continue to attract capital. So it's a split between equity and debt investment. And that works very well now. It's become an effective way of attracting capital to be able to build for more homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely. What I've found, Dylan, obviously I've been with you guys on a couple of tours, to see your properties and to actually see it in action. And, I would assume that's probably the best way to also to take an investor along and to feel the cloth, as they say, into, the township or into the property and to check it out. And I think that sort of gives you huge perspective. I think from an investment perspective, but I'm sure you do that already. So,
of course, and to meet the homeowner who's had flats built on her property, to hear the stories from her and kind of see it in real life, you can't replace that.
No, absolutely. So, Vaneni, that's why I want to bring you in. That what has been the impact of Bitprop's work in township so far? What are some of the notable success stories? I'm sure you've got a lot to tell there.
We have a few individual stories, but I would like to rather speak on like the general idea. Rather the general group of homeowners. So now we have about 98 homeowners. That's nearly 100, and that's 98 households that have an additional income. And though the 15% might be viewed as like kind of minor, it's been used in multiple instances to be a good source of additional assistance when it comes to income across Cape Town. So notable success stories has been, there's a homeowner in Langa who has used her income to generate another form of business with people in the community. So she has somebody come and clean up her yard, and she works with her tenants to gather in income, etc. And so these moments that she has is possible through the investment of the flats, but also the 15% income that she uses to also fund these new business ventures on the property. So we also have other homeowners who also bring in their children to help manage the flats. We have a good portion of our homeowners who have their children who do the majority of the tenant intake, who manage the payment process, etc. And so this has become more of a legacy element for them, and them also upskilling their children as well. So there have been like different ways that we didn't necessarily see. Well, I'm guessing the founders didn't see as a potential way of the impact spreading beyond just the individuals who receive the 15% income, or the tenants who live in the flats, but also the children that it passes. The flats will be passed on hopefully in the future. Also, other members of the community who try and develop their own businesses in small ways. So, like cleaning up the yards, cleaning up a bin, essentially. They provide other ways. There's also other small things, like the fact that there are people who sometimes move through the communities and ask for recycling. And this increased amount of tenants that are on these properties provide more, in a sense, like basic substance for them to collect as recycling as well. And homeowners use this as a process as well. So there are different ways that the knock-on effect is being observed, and it's very interesting to see.
No, great. One of the things I picked up, Dylan, I recall when we went on the tour, well, it was a few years back, but what I found very interesting and quite an incredible success story is that for the construction phase, you're utilizing local employment, which is great. I mean, so you're using people, so it creates jobs in that particular way. So I thought that was really a fantastic initiative. Is that still something you're doing, still a policy of how you do construction going forward?
Totally. And we're still working with some of the same contractors from those early days. And we've added a few as well. But I think it's critical to the model.
Yes. Yes, no, that's wonderful. And I think that in itself is a success story. And I think it's something that we shouldn't, pass on as well. So that's great. So Dylan, your team, as you say, you've grown. You've doubled in size. You've expanded to new areas in 2022. I mean, you mentioned up front how you've grown, so maybe just elaborate. So what are the current stats and the growth numbers that you can share with the audience today?
Yeah, I think firstly to add on to what Benene was saying on the impact, it's quite interesting when you dig down into it. So the 15% that the homeowner earns up front, that comes to a 65% increase in household income on average. That shoots up to 330% or so if you project to the 10 years. So it's a massive income stream that has been created on someone's property, and the asset value increases by 206%, I think the number is. So the long-term value being created there is amazing. And obviously, it's just the more and more people we can do that for, the better. So we spent the first couple of years testing, iterating our design and getting investment, etc. And then I think in 2021, we went from 52 flats to 184. And that's when things really took up. And we've sort of grown at roughly the same rate since then. We're just looking for more people to build for, more areas to work in. And hopefully grow it as much as possible.
No, absolutely. So that's fantastic. I mean, and it's so wonderful to see that, that's testament that the model is working, which is great. So can you elaborate just a little bit more on, and we touched on it in our, how Bitprop uses recycled materials in construction and how this contributes to sustainability, because that's also an important aspect too.
Yeah, so we didn't in the beginning, and it's always been so sustainable design and sustainable materials, especially in construction, has always been something that's more in high-end development because of the cost and expertise associated with it. It's really not prevalent at all in the township construction industry. But as we grew and our design matured and, we had some scale and some products became available locally, we've been able to introduce a number of things. So one of the first things was we use a plastic aggregate so it takes recycled plastic that gets ground down into some sort of aggregate, and that gets mixed into the concrete. And obviously that's pulling a lot of plastic out the environment. it comes to about 830 kilograms per flat we build. But what it also does is it actually makes stronger bricks. They're more fire resistant. They have better acoustic value, etc. We also use a polystyrene recycled concrete slab for our slab. And then our most recent addition has been solar on our property. So it's long been something we've wanted to do. It's now become possible to put solar panels on the property. We've done that on 3 properties now, and they're more or less totally off grid.
Wow.
And it fits into the model, which is amazing. You know, in terms of renewable energy, it makes our flats load shedding resistant if load shedding comes back.
Yeah, which is good chance.
Which it could well do.
Yeah.
The other reason that's great is because the nature of backyarding in general is, so you're adding all this density to properties, and it's not necessarily planned for, because most backyarding is informal or unrecognized. And so it's quite hard for the municipality to catch up, provide electricity, sewage, water infrastructure. We do ours legally, and which is great, but there's still, you know, electricity shortages, etc. And it's quite hard often to have one property be able to manage the load of the house plus 6 flats. And so the solar is, you know, mitigating that. It's taking away that reliance. It's reducing strain on the grid. So we're very excited about that. It should be rolling out on all our new properties this year, and we'll probably retrofit a bunch as well.
Fantastic. That's great. I can always trying to improvise and, you know, to become more efficient, which is great. So, Vanene, let's talk a little bit about the tenants. Let's talk about tenants. You know, you do the property management. So, you know, what is the typical profile of people that are living in these rental units, and, you know, what factors influence tenant satisfaction and retention?
Of course. So our typical tenant would be, or rather the persona of our typical tenant would be me. So a young professional. The average age of our tenants are about 31 years old. They're either a couple or they might have like one child. But essentially, there are people who are kind of in that in-between phase of, you know, you've moved out of your house, you now have a job that is sustaining you, and you're able to live in a place on your own, and you're starting to plan for the future and hopefully buy a property, and maybe be reintroduced into the Bitprop system as a homeowner in the future. But essentially, they are individuals who are trying to kind of cover that middle ground. So I think that with what we try to emphasize is that we provide affordable housing. And so, I mean, in Cape Town, there's a bit of like, you know, that affordable housing crisis as well, where not a lot of young professionals can move into a space that is of high quality, that provides everything that they need, but it's also in an environment that they're used to or they're comfortable in. So essentially, that's part of the reason, like part of the appeal when tenants want to move in. We even have a tenant waiting list. There's honestly a very long list of people who want to live in our properties, and with each new build, it does satisfy some of that. But from the perspective of retention, so a lot of the tenants that sign up to be a part of Bitprop, not only are they attracted by the quality of the builds or the style that, you know, fits in with their aesthetic, but also the fact that maintenance is provided. For them, it's kind of a selling point, the fact that they're able to log a ticket, you know, be able to, you know, reach out to the team and somebody will be sent to resolve their issues. So essentially, the idea with our tenants is that their bond is more with the homeowners, and the amount of conversations I've had with tenants that they view their homeowners as almost like a family, like they view the whole property as a family, that, you know, everybody has to be on the same page on certain things. I mean, you're sharing a space together. So there is also that bond that works for them. So that's also part of the retention. I spoke to a tenant who said that she would not at all move. She has no intentions of moving because one of the added benefits is the fact that the homeowner helps her with childcare on occasion. So she will drop off her child with the homeowner, go out for a bit and then come back, pick up her child, and that's part of the bond that works for her. So the fact that it's not just a business professional relationship, the retention of those tenants is also the fact that there is a personal bond, works well for our tenants as well.
Okay, great. So I just want to check into the audience here. I see there's questions coming in, so I'm encouraging you. We will deal with your questions when we finish our Q&A session right at the end. So please, we will deal with those 2 questions a bit later. So please hang on for that. But I just want to ask you as well, Vanessa, it could be you as well, Dylan. One of the vagaries of a property investor is obviously the tenant must pay the rent. So question is to you, and what are the defaults? Because we hear all these defaults that are happening, and it's at different levels. And maybe just share, those kind of stats in terms of, because Vanessa's very nicely painted the type of profile of tenant. So what is it? Or do you have defaults? Or is everybody paying their rent? What does it look like in terms of collections and that kind of thing for rent?
Yeah, we don't really have defaults.
Wow.
So we sit at about 97, 98% occupancy. That's sort of rolling 12 months average. Default basically 0. There might be 1 in a month, 2 in a month.
Yes.
We'll have a couple of arrears to follow up on, but we generally collect that pretty quickly. It's amazing. And that was one of the things we weren't sure about when we started that we had to prove.
Yeah.
But it is, as Benoni said, demand is so high.
Yes.
And there's a close relationship with the homeowner. So I think there's some social pressure that you're living with the person you're paying for. It all contributes to basically no default.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
I just want to add also that we've also been surprised by the fact that tenants typically pay 3 days ahead of the due date, which is the first of the month. So not only do we receive pretty much a very close, little to no defaults, but they pay ahead of time, which is quite interesting as well.
What quite interesting, I think some of the stats that came out from the likes of Bitprop and all that, these guys that do stats, is that on the lower end of the scale, and we it's more the entry level sort of rental, the defaults, and you are testimony to that, are extremely low. It's as you mentioned, it's like almost non-existent. So which says a lot. There's sort of like almost like a kind of a Hasbro type of thing. So I mean that kind of goes along with those stats. I don't know if you've got a comment on that or anything.
No,
you just
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay,
So,
no, that's
Just out of interest, like during COVID, when the biggest crisis that could hit the rental market happened, I think that it was like a 40% drop in payments in the general market, and we saw maybe 6%, and that was people losing their jobs and having to drop rent and stuff. But just there, you can see the disparity. It was crazy to see. So
maybe so let's talk about some of the lessons you've learned in your journey of developing rental units, Dylan, and partnering with homeowners, and how have these lessons shaped Bitprop's operations today?
Okay. So there were a few lessons we had to prove that this worked. When we started.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the comment, we were talking to a lot of financial institutions and potential investors and the likes. And the comments were, okay, it's impossible to build at a low enough cost to make this work, to make the whole model balance. Tenants won't pay rent. The homeowner's just going to bypass you and steal money. None of which was true. So we had to learn that, it is possible to build a sustainable township business, totally on commercial values. We learned how strong the social bond was on the properties and sort of with neighbors in the area. So tenants are very close to homeowners, and which is not what you'd see in the city, where people don't really know their neighbors. So that kind of thing was interesting to learn. Yeah, and rental it's a relationship business. Like, you can put systems in place and kind of plan for everything, but everything is about that relationship you have with the homeowner and with the tenants, and face-to-face maintenance interaction and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, of course, there are loads of lessons, but it's been such an interesting journey.
Fantastic. Okay, so what I want to do, just elaborate, I'm going to actually deal with one of the questions as well when we answer this, Vaneni. So I'm going to bring you in here, and we're talking, why this Bitprop, and we call it, Bitprop impact investment, and, why is it sustainable beyond the 10-year partnership for both homeowners and investors? And I just want to, there's a question that came through, what is the minimum investment amount and term? And I mean, Dylan, also, you could also come into that. So it's kind of related to that. Do you want to just elaborate on that?
Yes, so I can speak on the impact investment from the homeowner's perspective, and then I'll ask Dylan to speak from the investor's
Sure.
perspective. But from the homeowner's perspective, I think that because we emphasize partnership, there is a lot about their journey that we're able to kind of record and note beforehand that works for us. So, I mean, we've had conversations with homeowners where they say, past the 10-year partnership, I still want to keep a relationship with you guys. I want to retain certain elements of this partnership that works for us, this relationship. And so we're kind of keeping the conversation open. Like Dylan said earlier, the relationship is core to making sure that the investment is long-term. One of the more practical elements of the investment being sustainable is the fact that we have a maintenance team. So they do regular checks on the property to make sure that, the tenants are comfortable, they're happy, that if there are any major issues, it's resolved as soon as possible. We keep an open channel there. We have like an automated system that works and tracks any maintenance elements there. And we also do regular checkups on the property as well. So we'll interview the homeowner, interview tenants, ask them if they're happy, if everything works, so that's more the practical element of it. But then the training is ongoing. It's not once off. The homeowners and the homeowner relationship managers keep that as a regular point to constantly improve. We're also implementing different elements of technology because, I mean, this is a model that needs to scale. So we make use of the fact that good majority of our tenants and homeowners use WhatsApp. And so we integrate different elements of technical systems that we can implement on our side. And the fact that there is just the system that already works, the fact that there's WhatsApp with that. So being relevant and keeping the technology as a core element of our operations definitely helps on one side. So that covers comms, that covers tracking of admin information, etc. But then also making sure that, it plugs into a system that works on their side as well. Like, we can't keep emailing people if no one's going to respond. So we plug into something that works, WhatsApp. So yeah, that is kind of how we keep the sustainability from the homeowner perspective. And then I'll just pass it to Dylan to speak from an investor perspective.
Yeah. So Dylan, maybe we can either deal with it now or later, but I think it's relevant to that particular question. So maybe you want to elaborate just on that. There was a question that said, what is the minimum investment amount and the term, just related to that?
So the minimum investment amount is 100,000 Rand. That's purely a legislative thing. So above that, you're considered a professional investor. So that's the minimum amount there. We've looked at options for sort of, I guess, like crowdfunding models where people could put in smaller amounts. We might have that at some point. And then minimum term invested, it was 3 years on the equity investment into the fund, property fund. For the debt, it depends on the debt term, obviously. So I think we have running at 5 years and 7-year debt terms at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So let's look a little bit ahead here, Dylan. What is the vision for Bitprop in 2025 and beyond? I mean, as you said, you just got over the 500 unit mark. I mean, are there any upcoming initiatives or goals you're excited to share with our attendees?
Yeah, the solar, as I mentioned before, is a big goal. To standardize that in our model and take our flats off grid. Something that's been going on in Cape Town for a long time now is this. The city is working towards ratifying new bylaws, which will make backyarding development much easier. It's really difficult now for someone with a property somewhere like Lita Park, Kailicha, where we build, to find an architect and get a construction team, raise funding, know what to do, how to apply, what the fees are applicable are, and go through the whole process. And so it just happens anyway. And so the city has acknowledged, okay, it's good, creates income, housing, employment if it's done in a responsible way. So let's support it rather than legislate against it. That process has been ongoing for a long time, and we've been part of that with the city. And we're hoping that comes through sometime this year, because that will open up not just for us, for individuals and small businesses and stuff all over Cape Town to tap into additional funding and be able to develop rental property. It will also allow us to build in other areas in Cape Town, which brings me to the next point. So to scale, we want to finish on 750 units this year.
Okay, wow, that's great. Was a great, hairy, audacious goal. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we need some new areas to build in for that.
Absolutely.
So we're hoping that's possible.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. So, Faneni, you think that housing, particularly affordable housing, is an issue that can be addressed nationally and even internationally?
Definitely. So the reason why Cape Town was chosen because of the affordable housing crisis in Cape Town. But this is not just a Cape Town issue; it's a South African issue, and in fact, like an international issue as well. The growing middle is something that tends to be undealt with, or rather just ignored, essentially, when it comes to housing. So there's either the fact that the cities are growing at exponential rates, and housing doesn't match that. South Africa's housing backlog has been a topic that people have been speaking on for the 30 years that we've been in democracy. So there is definitely space for more affordable housing, and there are other initiatives that operate in other parts of the country as well. But that level of growth, though, is part of Bitprop's future, and looking into how we can grow outside of Cape Town as well. But it is definitely an international issue. I was reading a paper a few weeks ago about how in Kenya, there's like a good majority of most new housing is rentals. The fact that is like a very big market there as well. I'm not saying we're going to Kenya. There are no promises, but essentially the idea is that we are looking at an international issue. It is something that is widespread, especially with urbanization and globalization, the fact that everybody is moving to the city, and the official powers that be don't necessarily have the ability to provide housing at the rate that cities are growing. So affordable housing is definitely going to be something that continues to show up in the future, especially with all the levels of like the informal markets that have existed, especially across Africa, and how a lot of these formal institutions don't always match that. So it is going to be something that is going to be tackled for years to come, possibly even decades. So yeah, there is a market for it, 100%.
Wonderful. No, absolutely. So, I mean, we also just have to look at sort of the homelessness, not only in South Africa, in the world. So to me, that, affordable housing certainly it makes it more accessible for people that, certainly on the lower end of the scale. So absolutely. So just, Faneni, what would you like future homeowners or people looking to partner with Bitprop to know going forward?
I think that one of the major things that we've kind of come across as like a recurring point of confusion is that Bitprop takes ownership of your property. We do not. We want to kind of squash the rumors around how we operate and how we partner with homeowners. We lease your property. We never take ownership of it. There might be some legal elements that require us to work with lawyers in the deeds office in order for us to formalize the agreement we have with you, but we never take ownership of your property. We really want that to be very clear. From a more conversational point of view, we are not very strict about how we don't use the formal criteria that banks use when they're trying to partner with somebody. If you have debt in your history, if you don't have the best credit score, if you're honestly dealing with a lot of things with your water bill, etc., still apply, still come to us, still have a conversation. We are not very harsh when it comes to judging the criteria of homeowners who want to partner with us. We want you to know that we understand that there are different systems that work to serve different institutions, and we use a different model. We would like you to come, see if open a dialogue, see if it works for you, see if it works for us as well. We want it to be an open conversation that we can set up. So if you're an entrepreneur at heart, if you're somebody who's looking to see how your property can build your future, your retirement fund, leave something for your children, or even if you're just like a young professional looking to see that, in the future there is an additional passive income source, reach out, apply, have conversations with us. We will definitely be open to talking to you about how Bitprop works. We are approachable. I think that's the biggest point that we'd like to communicate with people. It's your property, it's your house, it's your ability to move around your space freely. It's a big conversation that needs to be had, and we're open to having that conversation. So yes, please reach out.
Awesome. Great. And we'll give all those details to everybody how to reach out to you. So let's get into the questions. And there's quite a few questions. Some of the questions we have already, touched on. But, maybe it's opportunity to elaborate for the audience out there. And so from Owen, and it's quite a good question here from Owen. And he says, is it a requirement for an existing home to be on the plot, or are vacant plots also considered? I don't know who wants to have a crack at that one. Dylan?
Yeah, sure. There does unfortunately need to be an existing home. There are two reasons for that. One is regulatory. So we build backyard flats, and that's it. It goes through a different process as an additional dwelling unit than would be the case if we were building a primary residence, and the cost structure is different and the requirements are different, and it's not what we do at the moment. The other reason is we require the homeowner to live on the property. As Brunella said earlier, they have the relationship with the tenant. That's very important in the model for the homeowner to be the crux of the whole model, and so they need to be living on the property.
Okay, great. There's another question from Julia. Can you have family members in your business?
I'd be open to hearing what that means just a little bit more. Is it like that you're working with your family, or are you asking from the perspective of
for me, I see it almost as the context of the question is probably partnering, so in other words, not doing it by yourself, doing it with other members. For example, on the one side, we've got a property owner might not be owned by one person, it might be owned by a few people, which could be somebody else in the family. I think there is so Julia, I don't know if do you want to just maybe elaborate on that question over there? Just pop it there in the Q&A box if you don't mind. I know she has raised her hand over here, so just pop it if you don't mind again, Julia. Then we can answer that question. So that we probably misconstrued it. So there's another one. The size of units, how big they are, and which housing typologies you do. Who wants to have a crack at that?
We noticed it's from a former intern, Elohim. Hi, Elohim. So our housing typologies, we do either 4 units, 6 units, and then we introduced last year 2-bedroom units to kind of match the demand that's there. So
Right.
our 2-bedroom units sit on more of like a smaller housing property size. So I'm not entirely sure the exact amount in terms of the square footage on the ground, but essentially it's 2 bedrooms for the smallest, and then we go up to 6 bedrooms. We also did introduce a different model that had a bit of a hybrid option as well, but it's not necessarily something that we're running as a constant point. But yeah, 2-bedroom, 4-bedroom, and 4 units, 6 unit, and a 2-bedroom.
And
Okay,
the bachelor units are the 18 to 20 square meters on average, somewhere around there.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we've got Vuso, and he's asking, and I think we did sort of did actually ask that one. He said, "Is it the homeowner's responsibility to obtain municipal plans and development approval, or does Bitprop cover that?" And I think we did briefly did do that. Yeah, so you want to maybe elaborate on that?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So we would submit the plans.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think it definitely came out in terms of the investment. I think the question was asked earlier on before the model was sort of disclosed, and so I think that's where. But absolutely, you guys do all the heavy lifting. Is that what you want to say? We do the heavy lifting. You don't have to do the heavy lifting. So I think that's the point over there, Vuso, is that you don't have to go through that process, and it makes your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Bitprop just need you as an investor. They need you as an investor in this bit. You wanted to add something to there?
Yes. So the designs, the designs are kind of preset. So we have a structure that we use to allow for the scalability of the units. So the basic elements as well also help with the contractors and making sure that they're able to build regularly so that the design doesn't change each time. But there is a standard set of drawings, because also we know what will work in terms of submitting to council and making sure that it goes through successfully as well. So we do have that as a system that runs on our side, and we do submit to council. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. That's important. So as you said, that heavy lifting is not done by the investor. Okay, so then Julia came back and she said, "Isn't there current company regulations that require non-family members to be business partners?" So it's more of a sort of a structure, because in most cases, I would assume that the property owner owns the property in their own name, or would it be in a company? So I think that's what I think Julia's kind of alluding to. So maybe you want to just share on that one, Dylan?
Yeah, so I think all of our homeowners, actually, it's personal. They're not registered as businesses. So we would require signatures from whoever's on the title. So that might be just one person or a couple. There are situations where a spouse has passed away or divorced, and then we'll help regularize that. But whoever is the owner of the property, and then sometimes there may be a grown-up child that's involved in managing the property, or if in the scenario where maybe 2 friends own a property, one of them would need to live on the property. They would both sign, obviously, as owners of the property, but that's fine, as long as one of them lives there. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think obviously, that require non-family. So there's not a requirement, I would say, for current company that require non-family members to be business partners. I mean, that's a decision you take by yourself, I would say. So so we've got some really good questions. They're flying in over here. One is related to affiliate program. Obviously, there's somebody who wants to find you investors and maybe even properties. And the question is, do you have an affiliation program of someone that can refer homeowners to obviously Bitprop and who would like to use your services? Can I get a referral fee? And I think that's a fair question. Do you have a program like that?
We do. I wouldn't say it's open. We like to know the people we're working with. So I'd invite you to reach out. We can meet you and discuss that further. But of course, to find good homeowners that have properties that they're willing to be on for a long time that are really committed to this, we need help to find people who are aligned with us on that.
Absolutely. No, good. That's great. I think it's, just like in any business, there's, very good referral systems. I mean, if you look at the legal industry and if you look at doctors, they have an incredible referral system. And in property, they also have a referral system. So definitely open up to that. So good to know. So obviously we'll reach out and we put the details there to Bitprop where you can have those discussions. Then we've got Kay. I think it's also a very good question from Kay here. And I think Kay is talking about obviously owners that obviously have properties which are still under bank bond. So do you want to just elaborate on that? Because let's assume obviously obviously the owner has to be either the property must be paid off or in good standing. You don't want to get a property that is maybe, there's a lot of defaults on the property, which will put the whole sort of development at risk. I don't know whether that's been an issue before, but I think the question is, do you find properties which are still under bank bond?
Yes, we do. That's probably half. So it doesn't, the way our model is structured, essentially, it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. No, excellent. Because I think at this stage, then, with that model, the owner is now getting a rental income, is getting a form of income. So a lot of the income that they're getting is obviously covering a lot of the expenses. So they are getting a benefit from that. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, exactly. And we would look at if they have a bond, we would look at the statement to make sure everything is okay.
Right. Excellent.
As you said, so that the bank doesn't pull the property out from under our feet at some point.
Yeah, great. So there is a question. Owen wants to schedule a meeting. So Owen, we've sent you details and we'll put you on to Dylan and to Venene. And Tutuka has asked, are we getting a recording? Absolutely, Tutuka. We send you, if you registered for this webinar, you will get it automatically, or you can go to the REI.co.za website, and I'm sure even Bitprop would love to put their webinar on their website too as well, see this whole discussion. But yes, it is available. There is a recording. Tumaleng has asked quite a good question as well. And I know Tumaleng, and she says, can one come on as an agent and get the owners to come on board via community seminars? And then secondly, so it's a bit of a twofold question, what happens with unruly, noisy tenants, sudden fallout between tenant and landlord, or death of homeowner, dependent not interested in continuing with the contract, or living with tenants and wanting to just sell? So quite a complex one, but Tumaleng, I think you're looking at all the possible pitfalls over there. So maybe who wants to have a crack at the first one? Can one come on it as an agent and get the property owners to come on board via community seminars? Who wants to answer that?
I think it's the same question as the referral.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Absolutely. I think so. So we're happy with that one. And then who wants to deal with the tenant story, the unruly ones? And in the case, I can see Venene very quickly put up.
You can deal with it quickly. So when it comes to tenants, we understand that a lot of homeowners are uncomfortable sometimes with the possibility of either tenants not paying or them being bad neighbors, in a sense, because that's what they would be. But what we do is we have the homeowners have to choose their tenants. We encourage them to interview them. We encourage them to have prolonged conversations to see whether or not this person would be a good tenant. And we do our checks on our side as well. But in the case that everything kind of seemed all right before they signed on, we do go through all the legal steps in order to evict tenants if they do go against the contract in certain ways. So if they break the contract in terms of being unruly or bad neighbors to the tenants, or we just won't renew the lease. That's more of a long-term option if someone is being, in minor ways, an inconvenience. But if it's major, then there is an eviction notice that does happen. And then in the case of, Dylan, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say we did that. The homeowner doesn't have to.
Yes. Yes, so that would be...
Okay.
So it'll be one of our agents that would go ahead and evict a tenant. But also on top of that, in terms of the homeowners, and in the case of death, or if they would like to not continue the partnership, we actually have found that a lot of our homeowners who are signing on don't have wills, which is quite interesting. I think the last assessment we did of all our homeowners, I think 6% had wills before on, and now 100% of them do, because we do have to regulate how that process continues past the partnership, or past in the event of their passing. So they have to stipulate who they pass the property on to, and ensure that, you know, the relationship, if they do choose to continue, there is a buyout option, but that is a complex calculation that needs to be determined based on the relationship, rather the length of the relationship that they've had with us, the partnership, etc. But there we do put in all the legal steps to make sure that the property remains in, you know, good standing with whoever it will be passed on to legally.
That's great. I think that's such a good initiative to do that. You're covering all those aspects, and I think great question from you, Timiling, to actually question those things. So absolutely. So well done. I think good on that one. Guys, I can't believe where the time's gone. We've already come to the bewitching hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask each one of you maybe just to give your final parting shots. Let's keep it under a minute if we can. Dylan, maybe your final thoughts, your final parting shots, and then Vanessa, I'll ask you just to do exactly the same before we close off.
Yeah, I would say please just reach out. I think, you know, as Munene said, the problems of housing and unemployment and lack of income, these are all big issues that we're looking at. We can't solve everything ourselves. You know, we want to partner with like-minded people who are hardworking, looking to solve the same problems. So please reach out. We can achieve more together than separately. So I look forward to chatting to as many of you as wants to reach out.
Absolutely. So I see there's another question, and I think it's a very important question from Zolani. And Zolani has said, would you look at someone who has a place with flats filled with tenants already, but needs help to finish off the unfinished flats? I don't know. Would you look at that, Dylan?
We don't do that. Not now, at least.
Okay.
Because we can't. No, we don't do that.
Okay. All right. Now that's a quick and fast answer, which is pretty much, I think, which anybody would like to do. Obviously need some kind of assistant. You would probably have to take, it's an all ownership thing, I would think, and gets a little bit more complex. But what I suggest, Alani, if you want to reach out to Bitprop and for private consultation and check out with them, I think that's the best. Maybe there is a solution. Who knows? So I think let's keep it open. Let's keep that interaction there. So Vanessa, your final parting shot before we go.
My final parting shot would be that Bitprop values attitude. We value how you perceive, you know, the opportunity, how you see yourself in that as well, and how you consider how it would work in terms of in a sustainable manner beyond yourself. We understand skills can be taught. People can learn how to, you know, become the type of people that we're aiming to, you know, leave as a homeowner, as a property entrepreneur in the long term. So the right attitude will take you a very, very, very long way. And if you feel you have the right attitude and, you know, you feel there is a common base in terms of that, please, please, please reach out. Please reach out. We're always open to having a conversation. Even if you want to set up other platforms for us to share this with other people you might know, other people you want to have a conversation with, please reach out. We're definitely open to presenting Bitprop to other people as well and explaining what we do.
Wonderful. And there's a link over there for everybody that's in the chat box if they want to reach out, or you can, you know, reach out to us. We'll ensure that both Vanessa and Dylan will get your messages through. So please reach out to them. So huge thank you to Dylan Vaneni, for joining us today. I think that was such an insightful discussion, and thank you for sharing your valuable insights, turning underutilized backspaces into profitable ventures. So I think really fantastic opportunity. And I think also what you're doing is really great. So contribution is really, I think, has enriched the session, both of you, and I'm certain many of our attendees have walked away with certainly a wealth of knowledge, and to help them on their investment journeys, and even maybe to reconsider their investment journeys. So once again, you can reach out. There's those links over there. And just before we wrap up, I want to remind you of our webinar next Thursday. Same time, we're back to the 12 o'clock slot from 12 to 1. And we're talking about the topic of real estate investing, traditional buy-to-let versus non-traditional investment models and strategies. So you don't miss this opportunity to discover a smarter path to wealth. And if you're a property investor looking for alternative strategy, don't miss it. Register now and reach out to Bitprop, because they also have an alternative strategy as well. To register, there is a link over there. You can click on there. You can just go to the rei.co.za website. There will be a recording. Yes, it will be. And that will also be on our website as well. And it will be sent to all the delegates. So to all of you, a massive thank you. Tune in today. Your participation, your questions were fantastic. And that's what makes these webinars so meaningful. And so thank you for that. And if you have any specific topics you'd like us to explore in future sessions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, info@rei.co.za, with your suggestions. We love hearing from you, and we will definitely consider them going forward. So we hope you leave today's session not only with actionable insights, but certainly with inspiration. So this is Neil Peterson, along with Vaneni and Dylan of Bitprop, signing out. Thank you all, everybody.